The Curse of Black Marsh. The mist crept slowly over the dark waters of Black Marsh, the most notorious swamp in Raven Creek County. Detective Sarah Lang stood at its edge, watching the shadows dance between ancient cypress trees. The late October air carried the sweet, rotting scent of decaying vegetation and stagnant water. Local elders always said these lands were cursed since the time of the first settlers. Now, staring into the murky depths as her flashlight beam disappeared into the thick fog, she was beginning to believe them. Mary Wilson's disappearance case had landed on her desk a week ago. A bright, ambitious folklore researcher from Boston University, Mary had come here to study local legends about the Marsh Witch. A woman who, according to legend, was banished from the town in the 1870s and swore vengeance upon all its inhabitants. Mary believed there was a true story of injustice behind the legend, a tale of persecution that needed to be told. Her research notes suggested she'd uncovered something significant about Elizabeth Raven's connection to the town's founding families. The trail had ended at an old cypress tree where they found her notebook, its pages warped from the damp air but still legible. The entries were filled with strange symbols and sketches, detailed notes about lunar cycles, and references to something called the Threshold. The final entry, written in shaking handwriting, read, "She's here. She's always been here. We were all wrong. She's not a victim. She's... God help me, I understand now. The boundary must be protected." Detective Lang had devoted 3 months to the investigation, longer than any other case in her 15-year career. During this time, she'd uncovered a disturbing pattern. Every 30 years, a female researcher vanished in the marsh. All of them had been studying the witch's history, and all disappeared on the same night, the autumn equinox. The coincidence was too perfect to ignore. The local archivist, Mr. Peterson, a frail man with wire-rimmed glasses and trembling hands, had shown Sarah old photographs from each decade. His own grandmother had been the town's librarian, and she'd kept meticulous records of the strange occurrences around Black Marsh. In every picture, there was a tall figure in dark robes standing at the marsh's edge. With each new disappearance, the figure became more distinct, as if something was slowly materializing from the mist across decades of time. "There's something else," Peterson had whispered, pulling out a dusty, leather-bound journal. Every woman who disappeared had reported strange dreams in the weeks before they vanished, dreams of an ancient book and a call from the water. Reviewing Mary's notes for the 100th time, Sarah noticed a recurring pattern she'd somehow missed before. A spiral turning inward toward its center, appearing in the margins of nearly every page. The symbol triggered a memory, and she realized she'd seen it before on an old headstone in the abandoned cemetery near the marsh. The inscription, barely legible beneath decades of moss, read, "Here lies Elizabeth Raven, guardian of the boundary between worlds." "It doesn't make sense," Sarah muttered, flipping through the case files spread across her desk in the precinct. The victims spanned different ages, backgrounds, and nationalities, but they all shared one trait: an obsession with uncovering the truth about Elizabeth Raven. And now, after weeks of vivid dreams about dark waters and whispered secrets, Sarah felt the same pull. On the night Sarah returned to the marsh with a backup team, the fog was thicker than ever, seeming to swallow their flashlight beams whole. Police spotlights barely penetrated the milky veil, creating eerie halos in the darkness. Suddenly, their radios began emitting strange noises, static mixed with what sounded like distant chanting, and their compasses spun wildly in their hands. A female figure in black emerged from the mist, her robes seeming to merge with the darkness itself. She didn't walk. She glided over the water, leaving no ripples in her wake. In her hands, She held an ancient book, bound in what appeared to be scaled leather, its pages glowing with a faint blue light. When the being spoke, her voice sounded like the whisper of 1,000 leaves, echoing with centuries of ancient knowledge. You come here again and again, trying to uncover the mystery. But the truth has always been before you, hidden in plain sight like the mist itself. I am not a victim, nor am I a vengeful spirit. I am the guardian, and this marsh is not a place of death, but of transformation. Those who come here with pure hearts seeking truth become part of the ancient knowledge. They are not dead, Detective Lang. They have become what I have always been, protectors of the boundary between your world and what lies beyond the veil of mist. Sarah felt the ground trembling beneath her feet as ancient energies stirred in the depths of the marsh. The last thing she remembered was the fog wrapping around her like a cocoon and a whisper in her ears that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. Welcome home, Guardian. The threshold has chosen you. The case of the Black Marsh disappearances remained unsolved in official records. The only things found in the swamp were Detective Lang's badge and her final notebook entry. Now I understand. We weren't investigating crimes. We were being chosen. The boundary between worlds is thin here, and it needs its guardians. I am becoming something more than I was. If you're reading this and you feel the marsh calling to you, don't be afraid. Some mysteries are meant to transform us. They say that on foggy nights, you can now see not one but several figures in black at the marsh. They guard the ancient knowledge and protect the boundary between worlds, preventing darkness from seeping into our realm. Each figure represents a woman who came seeking truth and found her true calling instead. Eternal guardians of the threshold between realities. The townspeople have learned to live with their mysterious neighbors. When the fog rolls in thick and heavy, they stay indoors, drawing their curtains tight. They've come to understand that the marsh doesn't claim victims. It chooses guardians, calling to those with the strength and wisdom to bear the burden of protecting our world from what lies beyond. Local legend has it that every few decades, when the stars align just right, a new seeker arrives in town. Someone drawn by the mystery, pulled by an unseen force they don't understand. The police station keeps a special file for these cases, marked simply, The Chosen. Inside are the stories of all those who came before, each one adding to the ancient tapestry of Black Marsh's legacy. If you ever find yourself near Black Marsh on a misty evening and hear whispers calling from the water, know this: you might be next. The guardians are always watching, always waiting for another pure heart to join their eternal vigil. They say each guardian retains her humanity while gaining something more, an understanding of the universe that transcends mortal comprehension. Some say if you look closely at the water's surface on a full moon night, you can see their reflections. Detective Lang, Mary Wilson, and all the others who came before them, their faces serene and powerful, no longer human, but something far more ancient and wise. They watch, they protect, and they wait for others who are worthy to join their ranks. The marsh keeps its secrets well, and its guardians keep their watch. And in the end, perhaps that's all we need to know, that something old and powerful lies at the edge of our world. And there are those who have been chosen to guard that boundary, to keep us safe from what lurks beyond the veil of reality. So if you ever hear stories about missing women in Black Marsh, remember, they haven't vanished. They've transcended. They've become part of something greater than themselves, protectors of a threshold we can barely comprehend. Their disappearances weren't endings but beginnings. And the next time fog rolls in over Black Marsh, listen carefully. You might hear their whispers on the wind, calling another chosen one home to join their eternal watch over the boundary between worlds.